Humanity's strongest 9-star warriors had already thrown everything they had at the invaders, and it still wasn't enough. These monsters rolled through mankind like they were speedrunning a game on easy mode. In the final battle, only Xenon Glorious and the mage Aerith Coven remained standing as humanity's last sliver of hope. Even after watching his entire squad get erased, Xenon refused to fall. Pushing his body beyond its absolute limit, he unleashed the final form of his divine blade. Empowered by Aerith's support magic, the Golden Swordsman entered a brief period of absolute insanity, landing a devastating strike on the enemy leader. For a few glorious moments, the man was practically running on divine DLC, but even that overwhelming power wasn't enough. The leader of the invaders simply refused to go down. Xenon's body began breaking apart under the strain, yet he kept fighting, fully prepared to die if it meant taking the enemy with him. However, just before he could throw away his life, Aerith intervened. Believing that a different future might still be possible, the mage trapped Xenon inside a magical prison and activated an ancient relic infused with the power of the gods themselves. Since civilization had already collapsed, there was nothing left to lose. Using the artifact, Aerith sent Xenon 10 years back into the past. When Xenon finally regained consciousness, nothing looked familiar. Disoriented and confused, he struggled to understand what had happened. The trauma of the final war still lingered so strongly that when a maid entered his room, he immediately begged for a sword so he could return to the battlefield and fight the invaders again. Only then did reality sink in. He wasn't in his original body anymore. He had regressed into the body of Noah Daskul, the fourth son of the prestigious Daskul family. Even worse, the Daskuls were infamous rivals of the Glorious family, the very household Xenon once belonged to. As Noah received his daily medicine, he instantly sensed something wrong. Without hesitation, he smashed the cup onto the floor. Moments later, Oscar and his lackeys barged into the room, pretending to be offended that Noah had rejected their so-called kindness. Noah immediately exposed their act, revealing that the medicine was actually poison. Thanks to the holy core he carried from his previous life, he could detect impurities with ease. Oscar's response? Threatening to force-feed him the poison anyway. Subtlety clearly wasn't this family's strongest trait. Noah decided he'd had enough. Even though he was still unfamiliar with his new body, getting murdered in bed wasn't exactly on today's schedule. When the thugs attempted to restrain him, Noah answered with the universal language of violence. A brutal kick sent the first attacker crashing into the wall, while a perfectly timed counter left the second man eating a fist straight to the face. The hits were solid, but Noah quickly realized something troubling. This body was nowhere near as strong as the one he had as Xenon. He had aimed to knock them unconscious instantly, yet they somehow remained standing. Still, Noah had bigger concerns. Why was the fourth son of the Daskul family being slowly poisoned by his own household? Before he could investigate further, the men drew their swords. That was when another surprise appeared. Information suddenly materialized before Noah's eyes, displaying the rank and status of everyone around him. Somehow, he possessed an appraisal ability, an extremely rare skill. Whether this power originally belonged to Noah or came from the regression itself remained a mystery. Either way, it made the fight laughably easy. Facing mere rookies, Noah effortlessly dodged incoming strikes, delivering a devastating kick that sent one man flying before casually deflecting another's sword with enough force to launch him across the room. Oscar, however, was different. Impressed by Noah's sudden strength, he finally stepped forward himself. Noah welcomed the challenge, but just as the fight began, his entire body trembled violently. The source was his mana core. In the Daskul family, a mana core served as the foundation of a magic swordsman's power. The problem was that Noah also possessed Xenon's holy core, and those two forces were never meant to coexist inside a single body. The conflict between them caused his movements to slow dramatically. Seeing this, Oscar smugly revealed the truth. The medicine Noah had been receiving all along had been infused with dangerous substances designed to overload his mana core. By exerting himself in battle, Noah had unknowingly triggered its berserk state. The overwhelming energy would eventually tear his body apart from the inside. Faced with death yet again, Noah gambled on something completely unprecedented. He used the holy core to suppress the rampaging mana core. Against all odds, it worked. Rising back to his feet, Noah prepared to continue the battle, much to Oscar's disbelief. Realizing brute force wouldn't work, Oscar activated the first stage of his Void Shift ability. Tendrils of dark energy wrapped around his blade as he launched a relentless assault. Despite fighting in a heavily weakened state, Noah reacted to every strike. In fact, he was genuinely impressed by Oscar's swordsmanship, especially compared to the two clowns he had already folded earlier. Unfortunately, Oscar interpreted the compliment as mockery and became even more aggressive. Noah couldn't care less about bruising the man's ego. Every attack Oscar unleashed was met with flawless precision. Slashes from the front, feints from the side, even attempts to circle behind him, all were blocked and deflected with surgical accuracy. After numerous clashes, the two finally separated. Through the exchange, Noah discovered the secret behind Void Shift. The technique consumed massive amounts of mana core energy each time it was used to disappear and reposition. In other words, Oscar was powerful, but if the fight dragged on, that fancy trick of his would become a very expensive habit. Oscar couldn't help but sneer at Noah, mocking him for already looking exhausted at the very start of the fight. But Noah wasn't exactly the type to sit quietly and take insults. If anything, this man had a PhD in trash talk. He fired back immediately, pointing out that Oscar was the one trembling under pressure. The taunt landed perfectly. Hook, line, and sinker. Enraged, Oscar activated Void Shift once more, vanishing into a sea of crimson mist while loudly proclaiming that Noah would never be able to predict his next move. In an instant, the entire room was swallowed by red fumes, completely obscuring Oscar's presence. Yet Noah remained calm. He closed his eyes and focused. His battle instincts, sharpened through countless wars against the invaders, were on a completely different level. Before Oscar could even launch his surprise attack, Noah had already moved. A devastating slash cut through the mist, and the next moment, Oscar was coughing up blood on the floor, wondering how his flawless technique had just been folded like cheap laundry. Noah calmly explained that masking one's body meant nothing if their killing intent still leaked out. Oscar's arrogance had become his biggest weakness, and it had cost him dearly. As Oscar lay on the verge of defeat, he couldn't stop questioning what kind of monster Noah had become. Ironically, Noah himself didn't fully understand it either. During that final exchange, he had sensed something extraordinary. The holy core from his previous life had resonated with the mana core inside Noah's body. The two powers, which should never have coexisted, had actually begun working together. That realization shook him. If he could truly master both energies, then he might eventually surpass even the peak strength he once possessed as Xenon Glorious. More importantly, it meant Aerith Coven's sacrifice hadn't been for nothing. Noah suddenly found himself standing on a path that could potentially save humanity itself. Before he could think further, several maids rushed into the room in panic, immediately calling for a physician after seeing the aftermath of the battle. Noah, however, was perfectly fine. What caught his attention instead was a tiny dragon perched near the window. The adorable little creature carried a letter addressed to him. The message came directly from Victor Daskul, the head of the family, summoning Noah to appear before him. More importantly, the letter encouraged Noah to officially participate in the family's succession battle. That alone told Noah one thing. Everyone in this household knew exactly what had been happening to him. Curious, Noah questioned Selena, one of the maids, about the succession battle. Her explanation made even a veteran like him pause. The Daskul family's method of choosing a successor was absolutely unhinged. Siblings were expected to fight one another, defeat each other, and steal their opponent's mana cores. The last person standing would inherit not only the title of family head, but also the combined strength of the fallen. Suddenly, Noah understood why the Daskul family barely existed in his previous timeline. These people weren't a family. They were a battle royale with matching last names. Selena asked whether Noah still intended to participate despite knowing the rules. The answer was written all over his face. The man was practically smiling, as if someone had just invited him to an all-you-can-fight buffet. Unlike the revered Glorious family, who were worshipped as holy protectors blessed by divine power, the Daskuls were feared and despised by the world. Their power stemmed from demonic forces, making them mysterious and terrifying figures. Yet among all of them stood one undeniable truth. Victor Daskul, the current patriarch, was recognized as humanity's strongest swordsman. Noah soon entered the family council chamber, determined to see the truth for himself. Inside, he greeted his siblings one by one. Damien Daskul, the eldest son; Julia, the eldest daughter; Case, the second son; Eve, the second daughter. Then came Skull Daskul, the third son, and the same snake responsible for poisoning him. Julia expressed relief at Noah's recovery, but Noah casually revealed that he had already discovered the reason behind his illness. While Julia assumed he would continue resting, Noah announced his intention to resume training immediately. Skull mocked him, claiming someone as worthless as Noah shouldn't bother training at all. Noah instantly fired back, calling out Skull for lacking the courage to confront him directly. That response struck a nerve so hard it nearly caused another fight on the spot. Fortunately, everyone quieted down as Victor Daskul entered the chamber. The atmosphere changed instantly. With every step he took, overwhelming pressure flooded the room. Even Noah, who had once stood among humanity's strongest warriors, found himself frozen in place. This was Victor Daskul, the legendary 9th star swordsman and strongest warrior of the modern age. Once the meeting began, Victor turned his attention toward Noah and asked whether he truly intended to participate in the succession battle. Smiling confidently, Noah declared that he intended not only to win, but to stand at the very top of the family. Victor reminded him that such ambition meant waging war against every sibling present in the room. Noah calmly corrected him. His goal wasn't limited to defeating his siblings. He intended to climb even higher and challenge Victor himself. The entire room fell silent. Noah had basically walked into the lion's den and announced he planned on becoming the lion. Victor responded by releasing a terrifying surge surge of mana pressure. The sheer force nearly crushed Noah where he stood, allowing him to experience firsthand the overwhelming power of the legendary swordsman's mana core. Even so, Noah refused to back down. When Victor asked whether he truly wished to surpass him, Noah answered without hesitation. When asked why he sought such power, Noah finally revealed the truth buried deep within his heart. He never wanted to experience loss again. He refused to let anyone take away what was precious to him ever again. Victor found the answer amusing and admirable. Recognizing Noah's boundless ambition as worthy of a true Dazgul, he officially granted him permission to participate in the succession battle. None of the siblings dared object. As the meeting concluded, Victor left Noah with a simple lesson: never stop craving greater strength. The next scene shifts to the Dazgul family's training grounds, where Noah is busy slicing training dummies apart like they personally offended him. His physical condition has definitely improved compared to when he first woke up in this body, but by his old standards, he's still painfully weak. Unfortunately, raw strength isn't his only problem. The fusion between the Mana Core and the Holy Core has completely turned his fighting style upside down. Back in his previous life, Xenon could freely unleash holy techniques whenever he wanted. Now, things aren't that simple. Noah barely understands the powers dwelling inside him, let alone how to use them efficiently. At the moment, his top priority is uncovering every secret behind this strange dual core before anyone else discovers it. If the rest of the Dazgul family catches wind of his abnormality first, things could get very ugly, very fast. While Noah trains, Julia arrives after noticing his movements from afar. The elder sister praises his recent growth, admitting that Damien has always been considered the leading candidate in the succession battle. However, Noah's sudden rise has sparked her curiosity, but Julia isn't the type to sit down over tea and discuss feelings. No, this woman believes family bonding should involve attempted murder. Without warning, she draws her sword and immediately aims for Noah's throat. Thankfully, he barely manages to dodge in time. Julia makes it clear that she didn't come here for casual conversation, and thus their sparring match begins. For Noah, it's the perfect opportunity to gauge his current strength. He launches a barrage of attacks, but Julia effortlessly blocks every strike, deflecting his blade before sending him stumbling backward with a kick. She acknowledges his skill, but points out a major flaw: his execution simply isn't there yet. To make matters worse, she provokes him, questioning where all that confidence from earlier has gone. Noah quickly realizes why she's so overwhelming. Julia has already reached the 7th star level. That's a massive gap. Julia resumes her assault, calling Noah disappointing as she relentlessly pressures him. One of her attacks nearly catches him completely off guard, forcing him to instinctively channel power from both the Mana Core and the Holy Core into his sword, just to survive. The moment he does, alarm bells start ringing in his head. If he keeps relying on this strange power, someone might notice the truth. Surprisingly, Julia becomes intrigued. The entire family has always viewed Noah's Mana Core as a defective failure, yet the power she just witnessed says otherwise. Unbeknownst to everyone, Noah had possessed a dual affinity core since birth. As long as Julia remains unaware that he's using 2 separate powers simultaneously, Noah can continue hiding his biggest secret. Refusing to back down, Noah boldly declares that he isn't the failure everyone believes him to be, and launches his own offensive. Unfortunately, Julia immediately speed blitzes him so hard that it feels like reality itself lagged for a second. While casually dominating the fight, she asks if he understands the true purpose of the succession battle. Noah already knows the answer: mana cores. Satisfied, Julia unleashes a terrifying amount of crimson mana and demands that Noah surrender his core. At that moment, Noah realizes this spar has officially evolved into attempted robbery with extra steps. Sensing real danger, Noah calls for Selena to throw him his actual sword. He catches it just in time as Julia launches another devastating strike. Even with the combined power of both cores, Noah struggles to block her attacks. Yet, despite being completely outmatched, his refined swordsmanship continues to impress Julia. Every exchange only fuels her battle lust further. Deciding to get serious, she activates the first form of the Shadow Flame style. Noah knows immediately that this technique is bad news. His only option is to brace for impact. The ensuing collision shakes the entire training ground, sending shockwaves across the area. Noah is stunned to realize that Julia has been fighting him with only one hand this entire time. Naturally, his pride can't let that slide. He aggressively counters, forcing Julia to finally use both hands to defend. For one glorious moment, Noah feels victorious. Then Julia repays the favor by launching him into the next postal district. Apparently, forcing an older sister to try slightly harder comes with consequences. Even so, Julia is genuinely annoyed that Noah managed to push her that far. Noah, however, has already exhausted nearly all his energy. The fight is essentially over. As Noah struggles to stand, Julia reveals why the Dazgul family doesn't simply massacre each other from the start. Powerful mana cores evolve slowly, while weaker ones grow rapidly. Harvesting immature cores is inefficient. That's why family members usually wait until their siblings become stronger before stealing their cores. In Noah's case, however, Julia believes waiting might be unnecessary. If a supposedly weak core can block and counter her 7th star attacks, then she wants it immediately. Going completely battle crazy, she prepares to unleash the 8th form of the Shadow Flame style to rip Noah's core out on the spot. Thankfully, before she can act, Kyle intervenes and stops her. He reminds Julia that Noah would literally die if she continued. Still obsessed with obtaining his core, Julia angrily lashes out at Kyle for interfering. Kyle then drops a bombshell. According to the investigation ordered by Victor Daskul, Noah's core is only at the 2-star level. Hearing this leaves Julia utterly speechless. A mere 2-star swordsman had managed to block her attacks. Realizing she may have severely underestimated her younger brother, Julia finally sheathes her sword. However, she leaves Noah with a cheerful little promise. Once his core matures, she'll definitely come back to steal it. Talk about sibling affection, Daskul style. Noah simply smiles and accepts the challenge. Meanwhile, as Julia walks away, she can't stop thinking about the mystery surrounding Noah's strength. Whatever secret her younger brother is hiding, she's certain it's far more interesting than she initially believed. Let's cut over to Oscar, who is currently having the worst day of his life. After completely failing to deal with Noah, he's getting chewed out by none other than Skull Daskul, the third son himself. Skull is absolutely livid. The fact that Noah, the family's longtime failure, is suddenly receiving attention and recognition while he himself has spent years being overlooked is something this spoiled brat simply cannot accept. To Skull, Noah stealing the spotlight is practically a crime against humanity. Still, the meeting isn't entirely pointless. One of his servants arrives with an interesting report, and suddenly Skull's mood improves. Apparently, the professional hater has already cooked up yet another scheme to get rid of his little brother, confidently promising Noah's eventual downfall. Family bonding in the Daskul household truly is something special. Meanwhile, Noah is introduced to Kyle Olsen, who politely apologizes for not introducing himself sooner. Kyle reveals that he has been assigned by Lord Victor as Noah's personal instructor. Since Noah spent years bedridden due to his illness, Victor wants someone to oversee his growth directly and accelerate his progress. Naturally, Noah immediately activates appraisal. The results are impressive. Kyle possesses 7th star strength, and when his swordsmanship is taken into account, he might as well be considered an 8th star fighter. Excited, Noah asks whether they should begin training immediately, but Kyle explains that Lord Victor has given them another mission first. They have been ordered to investigate and resolve a mana pool. This phenomenon occurs when mana concentration within a region rises endlessly due to an abnormal condition, causing monsters in the area to become frenzied. The only way to solve the problem is to eliminate the source and put down the empowered monsters. To Noah, this mission sounds less like work and more like a golden opportunity to grow stronger, so he gladly accepts. Soon, Noah and Kyle join several Daskul squads already operating in the affected region. The other squads are rapidly exterminating monsters, believing that wasting time on weak creatures serves no purpose. As Noah observes the operation, Kyle privately wonders what exactly Victor sees in this supposedly weak young master. Before he can dwell on it further, an urgent report arrives. 3 children have been found unconscious nearby. Since resolving the mana pool remains the highest priority and returning the children now would waste precious time, the group decides to bring them along while continuing deeper into the forest. As they advance, the concentration of mana steadily thickens. Noah quickly concludes that they are approaching the center of the mana pool. Naturally, the lord of the area should be waiting there as well. Right on cue, the boss monster finally appears. Scorpia reveals itself, and honestly, the giant scorpion looks like every person's irrational fear manifested into reality. Noah immediately orders everyone to prioritize the children's safety. Kyle assesses the creature and determines that it has already evolved to A-rank strength. They will need a proper strategy. Scorpia wastes no time. Swinging its massive pincers, it nearly crushes 3 people simultaneously. Thankfully, everyone narrowly avoids the strike. Unfortunately, the monster possesses not only overwhelming power, but terrifying speed as well. Noah immediately charges forward despite officially being only a 2-star swordsman. Scorpia eagerly accepts the challenge. Empowering himself with the combined strength of his holy and mana cores, Noah launches the first attack and successfully parries the monster's incoming tail strike. However, that was merely the beginning. Scorpia immediately follows up by unleashing countless venomous acid blasts, firing sharpened streams of poison capable of skewering anyone caught in them. Noah expertly dodges every single projectile, weaving through the attacks with incredible precision. Unsatisfied, the monster changes tactics. It fires the stinger from its tail like a gigantic projectile, meant to impale its prey instantly. Noah remains completely unfazed, casually deflecting the attack once more. His incredible swordsmanship leaves not only the squad speechless, but also impresses Kyle himself. The problem is that Scorpia's stinger regenerates almost immediately, allowing it to continue bombarding them relentlessly. Noah blocks another devastating strike before using the momentum to launch a powerful downward slash. Unfortunately, even a direct hit barely damages the creature. Its exoskeleton is simply too durable. Recognizing that he cannot defeat the monster alone, Noah calls for Kyle's assistance. Kyle immediately steps in, locking one of the monster's pincers in place with his own sword and creating an opening. Using Kyle's support, Noah leaps across the creature's claws and reaches a vulnerable position atop its body. There, he reveals his real strategy. Earlier, they had killed several venomous spiders, and Noah had secretly collected their fangs. The venom from those monsters possesses the ability to soften hardened exoskeletons. Using those toxins, Noah weakens Scorpia's armor and delivers a devastating blow that cracks its shell, severely injures it, and stuns the massive beast. Kyle quickly realizes what Noah has done and is deeply impressed by the young master's ingenuity. But Scorpia isn't finished yet. Entering a berserk state, the monster suddenly conjures numerous magic circles in the sky. At this point, the oversized bug honestly feels like it deserves its own spin-off series. Hundreds of acidic projectiles materialize around them simultaneously. Kyle instantly responds by activating his demonic magic style and erecting a massive barrier array that greatly strengthens their defenses. Noah realizes that they have perfectly timed this opportunity. Using the barrier as cover, he launches himself straight toward the monster, dodging the incoming attacks while rapidly ascending. During his earlier duel with Julia, Noah witnessed her shadow flame style. Inspired by that technique, he now attempts to recreate it in his own way. Combining both light and darkness, Noah creates an entirely new technique, the light shadow sword dance. Infused with the powers of both cores, his sword strike connects directly with Scorpia and completely destroys the monster from within, shattering its body apart. This represents the absolute limit of Noah's current strength. Even after successfully mimicking a portion of Julia's style, Noah understands that his execution remains imperfect and still requires refinement. Leaving the cleanup to Kyle, Noah ventures deeper into the forest alone. While most people in the current era remain ignorant about the origins of mana pools, Noah knows the truth, thanks to his experiences as a member of the glorious family in his previous life. Mana pools are artificially created through magical tools specifically designed to gather and siphon enormous amounts of mana. Following the traces, Noah eventually discovers the culprit, a ring, hidden inside a tree that has been absorbing mana continuously. Without hesitation, he cuts down the tree and removes the artifact, instantly dispersing the accumulated mana and permanently resolving the mana pool. However, while returning, Noah suddenly hears terrified screams. Rushing toward the source, he discovers that the children rescued earlier are behaving strangely. Worse yet, the entire area is now surrounded by monsters. Orcs, trolls, wolves, spiders, and scorpions flood the battlefield from every direction. Even Noah's subordinates begin panicking. One monster attacks Noah from the side, but Kyle arrives just in time to intercept it. Noah asks Kyle to buy him some time because he has figured something out. The collars worn by the children are absorbing their mana and using it as fuel. Noah immediately recognizes these devices. In his previous life, tools like these were one of the major reasons why the Daskul family had earned such a dreadful reputation. Unfortunately, Kyle points out that they cannot survive against this many monsters forever. If Noah doesn't find a solution quickly, everyone is doomed. Closing his eyes, Noah meditates and uses both his light and dark powers simultaneously. Through their resonance, he successfully traces the flow of mana back to its source and identifies the hidden operator controlling everything. Having located his target, Noah immediately dashes away while leaving Kyle behind to protect the children. Carving through monsters left and right, Noah cuts down everything in his path, taking heads so efficiently that the monsters probably didn't even realize they had died. Eventually, he reaches an open field and demands that the mastermind reveal himself. Instead, an attacker suddenly appears from behind. Fortunately, Noah easily predicts and dodges the sneak attack. The mysterious operator is shocked that Noah detected him at all. Keeping things straightforward, Noah demands to know who sent him. Naturally, the man refuses to answer, but Noah never intended to ask politely for long anyway. Their battle begins immediately. During the clash, Noah uses appraisal and identifies his opponent as Darius, a 4th or 5th star fighter. Although Darius possesses mediocre swordsmanship, his mana control is exceptional. Activating the second form of his Yuan style, Darius summons multiple swords infused with dark energy and launches them as deadly projectiles. Noah is forced to evade numerous attacks simultaneously while searching for an opening. Even amidst this chaotic barrage, he flawlessly avoids every strike. Realizing that staying at range only benefits Darius, Noah suddenly accelerates and closes the distance. Reaching point-blank range, he unleashes a powerful slash. Darius mocks the attack, claiming it is predictable, before counterattacking toward Noah's exposed openings. However, Noah activates his dark light shift technique. Somehow, he instantly appears behind Darius, completely bypassing his defenses. Before Darius can react, Noah cleanly cuts him down. His arrogance has finally caught up with him. As Darius collapses, he desperately asks how Noah could possibly use such a bizarre technique. Noah recalls his duel with Julia. One of the greatest advantages granted by his dual cores is the ability to understand and mimic techniques that embody either light or darkness. However, copying techniques is merely the beginning. Noah intends to surpass the originals by refining and evolving them into something entirely his own. With Darius defeated, Noah demands information about the mastermind behind this entire incident. Darius refuses to cooperate. Instead, he suddenly pulls out a mysterious vial and drinks it right in front of Noah, while our protagonist does absolutely nothing to stop him. Peak Manhwa behavior. Moments later, Darius begins transforming into a monstrous creature. Apparently, his genius backup plan was turning himself into a giant monster. The result looks like someone fused Tarzan, the Green Goblin, and Vegeta into one very angry package. Noah had expected many things today, but this definitely wasn't on the list. Anyway, Noah squares up against the newly transformed Darius, who now looks less like a human and more like a science experiment that should have been shut down immediately. The two clash head-on, their weapons colliding with enough force to send shockwaves rippling across the battlefield. But despite Noah's superior technique, he's the one being pushed backward. The monster's raw strength is simply overwhelming. Every strike from Darius feels like getting hit by a runaway carriage. Noah quickly realizes that standing there and repeatedly blocking isn't sustainable. Meanwhile, Darius is having the time of his life, gleefully trying to tear Noah apart. The mutated freak even attempts to bite his head off with that horrifying mouth of his. Noah narrowly avoids claw after claw, sliding and weaving around every attack. At this point, he isn't even trying to counter. The only goal is survival. Leaping backward, Noah finally creates some distance and regains room to think. He knows endlessly dodging isn't a strategy. Eventually, he'll run out of stamina. If he wants to survive, he has to end this fight quickly. So Noah patiently waits. He studies the monster's movements, calmly preparing his counterattack. Darius mistakes this composure for despair, assuming the young master has already accepted death. Convinced that victory is his, the monster charges forward to deliver what he believes will be the finishing blow. Unfortunately for him, Noah has other plans. Casually raising his hand, he activates the power of the magical ring he recovered earlier. A barrier instantly materializes in front of him. But this shield isn't just designed to block attacks. The moment Darius collides with it, the barrier releases a monstrous recoil force that launches the transformed assassin high into the air. The poor guy is sent flying so hard that his entire dignity departs alongside him. Noah, meanwhile, is pleased. Little by little, he's becoming more accustomed to utilizing magical tools, a skill he rarely relied on in his previous life. Now that Darius is completely defenseless in midair, Noah doesn't hesitate. He leaps upward and unleashes a devastating holy magic technique, the bipolar blade. Yes, while other people struggle with complicated relationships, Noah apparently has a bipolar sword. Infused with the power of both light and darkness, the strike tears straight through Darius and definitively ends the battle. Glancing down at his ring, Noah reflects on its ability. The artifact can nullify a single attack and unleash a tremendous shockwave in retaliation, an incredibly useful tool, especially when dealing with oversized lunatics. With Darius defeated, Noah immediately rushes back toward the others. Unfortunately, things aren't looking good. The endless waves of monsters are slowly overwhelming the group through sheer numbers alone. Even Kyle, despite his immense strength, is beginning to reach his limit. One monster lunges at him, and for the first time, Kyle finds himself completely unable to react. Yet just before the creature can strike, it suddenly stops, turns around, and retreats. Strangely, every other monster follows suit, abandoning the battlefield entirely. A moment later, Noah returns. Thankfully, everyone survived. Since Noah eliminated the mastermind controlling the horde, the immediate threat has disappeared. However, he still hasn't uncovered who orchestrated the entire operation. Before leaving, Noah removes the strange collars from the children's necks, finally freeing them from the device's influence. Back at the estate, Noah remains visibly frustrated. The children nearly died because of this incident, and that makes the matter personal. Whoever planned this attack has officially earned a permanent spot on Noah's hit list. One of his maids informs him that if anyone possesses information about the incident, it's Eve Daskul. Within the family, Eve serves as the undisputed information broker, practically knowing everything worth knowing. Determined to meet her, Noah heads toward her residence. However, he is immediately stopped by Case Daskul, the second son. Even though Noah is family, Case refuses to let him pass. According to Lydia's information, Eve is definitely the person Noah needs to see, so he demands that Case move aside. Case calmly explains that he acts as Eve's personal bodyguard and cannot allow anyone inside while they're radiating bloodlust. Noah insists that he only wants a conversation, but Case clearly doesn't buy it for even a second. Realizing words won't solve anything, Noah draws his sword. Naturally, Case responds by unsheathing his own blade. The second son attacks first, but Noah instantly blocks the strike and smoothly deflects him backward. So far, Noah handles the exchange surprisingly well. However, Case quickly escalates things by activating Stone Lance, summoning hundreds of rocky spears designed to turn Noah into a very artistic pincushion. Noah responds by repeatedly swinging his sword, destroying every projectile before they can hit him. Not willing to stop there, Case activates another technique known as Crushing Fang Rock Blade, materializing an enormous stone sword. The entire move leaves Noah slightly confused, but he soon understands the problem. Each successive attack grows heavier and heavier, steadily forcing him backward. Eventually, Case misses a strike, granting Noah a brief moment to analyze his opponent. What immediately stands out is the sheer variety in Case's combat patterns. The man seamlessly alternates between swordsmanship and magic, making him incredibly difficult to predict. Fighting him recklessly would be suicide. Noah activates Appraisal and receives a shocking result. Case possesses 8th star combat capability, yet his mana core itself is only around 5th star level. This revelation explains everything. Case compensates for his weaker core through exceptional technique and intelligent integration of swordsmanship and magic. Curious how his brother would react to overwhelming force directly, Noah activates his own technique once again, the light-shadow sword dance. Waves of energy erupt from his unique dual core, instantly surprising Case. Recognizing the threat, Case decides to respond seriously and activates the second form of the Irai style. Drawing upon the demonic power of the Daskul family, he creates crackling black lightning around himself. Noah already knows about the Irai style thanks to Kyle's teachings. Among the many styles practiced by the Daskul family, Irai specializes in speed-oriented techniques and is widely feared because its attacks are considered almost impossible to avoid. Case is intrigued that Noah knows so much about his abilities, but knowledge alone won't save him. Confidently, he launches himself forward at godlike speed, transforming into a streak of raging crimson lightning that closes the distance almost instantly. Yet Noah doesn't panic. Carefully timing the attack, he lowers his blade and perfectly intercepts Case's ultimate technique. The resulting collision explodes outward with terrifying force. When the dust settles, Noah remains standing, though heavily injured. The sheer weight behind Case's attack still managed to wound him despite his defense. Noah quickly realizes something important. Even though he can copy techniques using his dual cores, those imitations are imperfect. They possess limitations. Relying solely on copied abilities will eventually get him killed. Before the battle can continue, however, a calm voice suddenly orders them to stop. Eve herself has been observing the entire fight and finally intervenes. Invited inside, Noah finally meets the elusive information broker. Eve questions why the two brothers were fighting in the first place. Case simply explains that Noah arrived, radiating bloodlust, forcing him to act as her protector. Noah can't help but wonder why a member of the Daskul family is serving as a bodyguard to begin with. Eve casually explains that she isn't particularly capable in combat, so Case handles her protection. Case then demands to know why Noah came, reminding him that Eve has no involvement in the succession battle. Before Noah can answer, Eve already figures it out. She correctly deduces that he's investigating the recent assassination attempt. Since gathering information is literally her entire profession, learning Noah's purpose wasn't exactly difficult. Eve agrees to provide everything she knows, but naturally, information isn't free. Every transaction requires payment. When Noah asks what she wants, Eve brings up the Infinite Library, a labyrinth so vast and deep that no one has ever fully explored it. The library contains countless pieces of humanity's accumulated knowledge, including secrets the world hasn't yet discovered. An entire city called Arcanium has formed around it, attracting scholars, adventurers, and treasure hunters alike. However, the labyrinth is also infested with deadly monsters, making exploration extremely dangerous. Eve's request is simple. She wants Noah to retrieve a specific book known as Yuan from the Infinite Library. Only then will she provide the information he seeks. Fortunately, Noah immediately recognizes the title. Even in his previous life, Yuan was legendary. The book revolutionized magical theory and ultimately saved countless lives during humanity's war against the invaders. Although it wasn't enough to save the world itself, its value remains immeasurable. Acquiring such knowledge early would be an enormous advantage. Noah immediately accepts the deal, and the two shake hands. Wasting no time, he departs alongside his maids and heads straight toward Arcanium, the city surrounding the Infinite Library. The labyrinth itself is notoriously complex. Once someone loses their way inside, they rarely ever return. Knowing this, Noah decides that his first priority is finding an experienced guide capable of navigating at least part of the endless maze. With that goal in mind, he enters a secluded alleyway in search of the mysterious guide. Meanwhile, back at the Daskul estate, Eve is peacefully enjoying her tea when her tranquility is ruined by the arrival of none other than Skull Daskul. The third son, professional hater and full-time nuisance, has apparently decided to pay his sister a visit. Eve is genuinely surprised. It isn't every day that Skull willingly walks into her quarters. Acting as though he's in desperate need of assistance, Skull begins by asking where Case is. Eve explains that her loyal bodyguard is currently away, handling an urgent mission. Hearing that, Skull casually remarks that this means no one is around to protect her, making the statement sound suspiciously close to a threat. Fortunately for Eve, she has more than enough powerful subordinates guarding her, so she isn't particularly concerned. Instead, she's curious about what Skull actually wants. The third son quickly gets to the point. Noah's recent performance has been bothering him to no end. The fact that the youngest brother can already exchange blows with Julia, despite supposedly being weak, is simply insane. Skull wants answers. More specifically, he wants to know the secret behind Noah's sudden strength. Eve immediately stuns him by casually revealing that she already knows his best assassin failed to eliminate Noah. Unfortunately for Skull, Eve flat out refuses his request. Sharing information of that nature would upset the balance of the succession battle. If she openly favored one sibling, the others would immediately target her. Maintaining neutrality is essential for her survival. Skull understands that this essentially means she won't cooperate under any circumstances. Eve calmly replies that perhaps she might reconsider if he could offer a price worth risking her life for. Skull ominously promises that she'll soon find out exactly what he's prepared to offer before leaving, clearly plotting something unpleasant. Elsewhere, Noah finally arrives at Arcanium, the city city surrounding the infinite library. Navigating through the bustling streets, he searches for the guide he needs to safely traverse the endless labyrinth. Eventually, he enters a small shop that instantly brings back memories from his previous life. The owner is Osrek Harves. The old man immediately tells Noah to get lost because the store is closed. However, Noah assures him that he isn't interested in buying anything. Instead, he wants to hire Osrek as a guide for the infinite library. Surprisingly, Osrek rejects him without hesitation, claiming he no longer works as a guide. He even insists that he isn't the best guide in the city anymore. Noah finds this reaction strange because, in his previous life, nobody loved the infinite library more than Osrek. Sensing that something deeper is going on, Noah directly asks why he gave up guiding. Osrek suddenly snaps, claiming that this isn't something a child should involve himself in. Realizing he lost his temper, the man quickly apologizes and admits that life has been difficult lately. Before Noah can continue pressing him, another visitor arrives. To Noah's absolute shock, it's Julia Daskul casually waving at him as though stalking her little brother across an entire city is perfectly normal sibling behavior. Apparently, she spotted Noah during one of her missions and decided to follow him all the way here. Osrek immediately recognizes Julia and practically transforms into a different person. Moments ago, he was rejecting Noah outright. Now, he's suddenly willing to accept the job under one condition. Julia must accompany them. Noah has absolutely no idea where this conversation is going, but he follows both of them into another room. Inside, Osrek reveals the reason behind his strange behavior. Lying unconscious on a bed is his wife. 1 month earlier, she was cursed by a monster residing within the library, leaving her trapped in a deep sleep. Worse still, the curse is gradually consuming her life, meaning she may not have much time left. According to Osrek, one of the only ways to break the curse is to kill the monster responsible. Unfortunately, every adventurer he hired for the task ended up getting slaughtered. Desperate to save his wife, Osrek begs Julia for help. The proposal interests Julia, but she immediately adds her own condition. Noah must participate as well. More than anything, she wants another chance to observe her younger brother fight. Her insistence all but confirms Noah's suspicions that she already knows something unusual is happening with his powers. Noah eventually agrees, assuring Osrek that he will support the expedition. The guide is overjoyed. Outside, Noah asks Julia whether it's really alright for her to take such a detour. Julia couldn't care less. In truth, she's fascinated by Noah. During their previous duel, she sensed something inside him that wasn't simply a mana core. Whatever secret Noah is hiding, Julia intends to uncover it during this mission. Noah, realizing his sister is basically conducting a personal investigation on him, silently resolves to remain careful. After packing enough supplies to survive the apocalypse, Osrek joins the siblings, and the trio heads for the infinite library. At the entrance lobby, Osrek registers all 3 of them for the expedition. Interestingly, many people recognize him, though not in a flattering way. Rumors paint Osrek as a cursed guide whose expeditions inevitably end with adventurers being brutally killed. Ignoring the whispers, the trio arrives before the massive gates of the infinite library. Stretching out both arms, Osrek opens the giant doors, revealing an awe-inspiring maze unlike anything else. Even Julia, who is visiting for the first time, immediately understands why guides are considered indispensable here. The labyrinth resembles an enormous puzzle, where getting lost usually means never returning. As they explore, Noah notices something deeply unsettling. A statue depicting the invaders stands among the structures. The same invaders, destined to descend upon the world years later. The problem is that this statue didn't exist when Xenon visited the library in his previous life. That can only mean one thing. The current timeline is somehow directly connected to the future invasion. Suddenly, Noah gains a new sense of hope. Perhaps somewhere within this endless labyrinth lies the key to defeating the invaders and changing humanity's fate. As their journey continues, the trio eventually reaches the first floor. Noah asks Osrek where they might find the book Yuan. Osrek explains that books of exceptional rarity generally appear far deeper within the labyrinth. Based on his knowledge, the forbidden book should be located somewhere around the 20th floor. Hearing this shocks Noah because, according to history, the 20th floor is the deepest level humanity has ever successfully explored. Before they can discuss it further, the group arrives at the plaza leading to the 2nd floor, where several ogres suddenly appear. Osrek immediately asks Noah to handle them. Noah obliges without complaint. Drawing his sword, he cuts through the monsters in a series of swift, efficient strikes, erasing them so quickly that the ogres barely have time to regret their life choices. Osrek is stunned by Noah's effortless display, while Julia merely smiles faintly, as if she expected nothing less. The trio continues advancing deeper into the labyrinth, until they finally reach the 10th floor. Here, Osrek warns them to keep what they're about to witness secret. Approaching a bookshelf, he pulls out a specific volume, causing a hidden passage to open. A magic circle appears beneath their feet. Osrek proudly explains that this shortcut is a route he personally discovered years ago. Following his instructions, the 3 step onto the circle and are instantly enveloped by brilliant light. When the light fades, they find themselves in an entirely different location. According to Osrek, the plaza before them leads directly to the 20th floor. Julia is thrilled that they're finally close to their destination and immediately marches ahead. Unfortunately, The moment they enter the plaza, a summoning circle activates. Emerging from it is an Elder Trent, an S-rank tree monster. The sight alone terrifies Osrek. During his previous visits, only an ordinary giant Trent had guarded this area. An Elder Trent should never have appeared here. Julia, however, remains completely unimpressed. Treating the colossal monster like an oversized weed, she calmly draws her sword. When Osrek nervously points out that even both siblings together might not defeat such a creature, Julia confidently declares that she alone is more than sufficient. She immediately charges forward, effortlessly dodging the barrage of branches launched at her. Performing an acrobatic somersault, she closes the distance and delivers a powerful slash. Yet the attack barely scratches the creature because its bark is as hard as steel. Osrek desperately warns her that defeating such a monster would normally require a mage. Before long, the Elder Trent ensnares Julia with countless branches, completely restraining her. For a brief moment, it appears Noah may have to intervene. Then Julia decides she's had enough. Activating the 5th form of the Shadow Flame style, she erupts in black flames, instantly incinerating the branches. Cloaked in blazing armor known as Shadow Flame Black Armor, she launches herself back into battle. Activating the 1st form of the Shadow Flame style, Julia darts across the battlefield at blinding speed and cleanly slices through the monster's trunk, splitting the Elder Trent into 2 halves. Proudly declaring that her blade is tougher than steel, Julia strolls back toward Noah and Osrek. Unfortunately, the celebration is short-lived. The supposedly defeated monster suddenly begins regenerating and captures Julia once again. Rather than panicking, Julia simply smiles. She had already anticipated this. Tree-type monsters can regenerate endlessly unless completely burned to ashes. The moment Noah sees her preparing another technique, he immediately grabs Osrek and sprints in the opposite direction. He already knows exactly what's coming. Activating the 3rd form of the Shadow Flame style, Julia unleashes an explosive burial attack, powerful enough to incinerate everything within the surrounding area. Her plan is simple: erase the Elder Trent so thoroughly that regeneration becomes impossible. Moments later, the entire monster is reduced to ash. Julia calmly sheathes her sword and suggests they continue onward, as if she hadn't just recreated a natural disaster. Both Noah and Osrek are left speechless by the overwhelming display. Noah can't help but reflect on the terrifying offensive power of Julia's Shadow Flame style. Even during his life as Zenon, he had heard legends regarding the technique's might. Still, witnessing it firsthand is an entirely different experience. While its destructive power is unrivaled across the continent, Noah also remembers its greatest weakness. The style burns through stamina at an absurd rate. Even so, after seeing Julia in action, Noah understands exactly why she is considered one of the most terrifying members of the Daskul family. After dealing with the Elder Trent, the trio finally arrives at the 20th floor of the Infinite Library and immediately begins searching through the endless shelves for the book they came all this way to obtain. Thanks to his memories from his previous life, Noah manages to locate the book surprisingly quickly. The moment he spots it, he calls out to the others in excitement. Mission accomplished. Or at least, mission 1. Julia quickly reminds everyone that they still have unfinished business. They didn't come here just for a book. They also needed to hunt down the monster responsible for cursing Osrek's wife and kill it once and for all. Osrek explains that he encountered the creature somewhere on this floor before, so if they continue exploring long enough, they should eventually cross paths with it again. Noah points out that monsters are normally restricted to the plazas inside the library. However, Osrek shakes his head and reveals that this particular creature completely ignores the rules. While continuing their search, Noah suddenly stumbles upon another book hidden among the shelves. The contents immediately catch his attention because it contains information he has desperately wanted to find. Unfortunately, before he can continue reading, the atmosphere suddenly changes. Appearing before the group is a heavily armored monster with an abnormally long and grotesque arm. The creature radiates danger from the moment it arrives. Naturally, Noah gets excited and immediately reaches for his sword, eager to test himself against it. Before he can move, however, Julia steps in and orders him to stay back. Apparently, Big Sister has claimed this boss fight for herself. Unlike earlier, when she couldn't stop asking Noah to show off his abilities, now she's insisting on handling everything alone. The monster wastes no time and unleashes a dark slash powerful enough to shake the entire area. Julia grits her teeth as she barely manages to block it. The force behind the attack is so ridiculous that both Noah and Osrek are forced to leap away to avoid getting caught in the aftermath. Julia is visibly confused. She's not used to being the one getting overpowered. Refusing to drag the fight out, she quickly charges again, weaving across the battlefield in a zigzag pattern before appearing behind the monster. Yet just as she swings, the creature calmly parries her attack. Meanwhile, Noah and Osrek take cover behind a bookshelf, watching the battle unfold. Noah is already worried because he can barely follow the speed of the exchange, yet the monster is still effortlessly responding to Julia's attacks. Not willing to lose, Julia activates the 2nd form of the Shadow Flame style, Flame Vortex. Even Osrek believes this technique might finally finish the monster. Noah, however, has a bad feeling. Julia dashes around to the opposite side and lands a direct strike, but the monster's armor proves absurdly durable. Not even a scratch appears on its body. Then things get even worse. The creature opens its disgusting jaws and releases a green breath attack. The toxic blast curses Julia's arm on contact, immediately weakening it. Thankfully, Noah reacts just in time, rushing in to pull his sister away before the attack can finish her off. After checking her condition, Noah asks if she can still fight. Julia insists she's fine, but immediately warns him about the monster's bare arm. Based on her observations, any physical contact with it results in a curse. Since her own arm has already been affected, she can no longer unleash a decisive finishing move. Noah processes this information and then asks his sister for a favor. He wants her to use the same attack from earlier one more time. Julia is understandably unhappy about repeating the exact maneuver that nearly got her killed, but she agrees anyway. The two siblings charge together. Julia unleashes her Shadow Flame sword dance, while Noah activates his self-created Light Shadow sword dance. Their combined assault crashes into the monster with tremendous force, yet unbelievably, the creature remains completely unharmed. Looking at the still-standing abomination, even Julia admits that this thing is a true monster. The creature retaliates immediately. Julia leaps into the air to avoid the attack, while Noah intercepts it with a perfectly timed parry, briefly shielding his sister in the process. Julia then orders Noah to fall back, as she prepares an extremely powerful technique from the Ion Style's second form. At the same time, she shouts for Noah to synchronize with her attack. Noah responds by activating Bipolar Single Blade and charges straight in. However, the monster casually catches Noah's sword with its hand and completely stops the attack. Thankfully, Julia follows up with Flame Vortex, allowing Noah to escape before things become even uglier. At this point, Noah notices something alarming. Julia has already consumed a massive amount of mana. Sweat begins forming on his forehead, as he wonders if retreat might actually be their only option. Then, because the universe clearly enjoys making things worse, another identical monster suddenly appears. Now they have two nightmare fuel monsters to deal with. Just as despair begins creeping in, Noah hears a strange voice whispering about powers mixing together while remaining incomplete and unbalanced. Without warning, Noah suddenly finds himself inside an entirely different space. Standing before him is a mysterious being made of pure light. Confused, Noah demands to know where he is and who this figure might be. The luminous entity explains that Noah is the first successor in centuries to inherit the Divine Authority core. More importantly, it doesn't want Noah dying such a pointless death so early. Therefore, it decides to offer him a small hint. The being reveals the name of a technique before abruptly sending Noah back. The moment he returns to reality, a notification appears before his eyes. It announces that he has officially awakened as a successor, and that the Divine Authority core system is now unlocking. Noah immediately activates the second form of the Divine Authority style, Dual Heaven Render. Staring directly at the monster, he calmly informs it that playtime is over, and it's finally time for payback. However, before Noah can even unleash the attack, another system message suddenly appears, stating that an invitation has been accepted. A second later, Noah is forcibly transported elsewhere again. This time, he arrives in an unfamiliar location where a mysterious voice echoes throughout the void, remarking that the Divine Core experiment was apparently a success after all. Golden light begins pouring out of Noah's sword, before gradually taking human form. The radiant figure introduces himself as Zekus Varmut, the previous inheritor of the Divine Core. Noah quickly realizes that Zekus is connected to the strange power he just awakened. Surprisingly, Zekus immediately dismisses ordinary cores as nothing more than defective tools. He proceeds to explain the forgotten history behind them. During a previous era, invaders descended upon humanity and plunged the world into chaos. In response, the heavens bestowed humanity with the divine core to resist them. Sadly, humanity still lost, not because the invaders were unbeatable, but because humans were too busy fighting each other. Zekus himself was eventually assassinated by rival factions who feared the overwhelming power of the divine core. After killing him, those groups split the divine core apart so that nobody could ever wield its full strength again. The result was the creation of the separate holy core and monocore. Everything finally clicks in Noah's mind. Zekus calmly informs him that he has now become the next successor. Noah, however, immediately asks the only question that matters. Could Zekus have actually defeated the invaders? Without hesitation, the former successor confidently answers that he would have annihilated them completely. Hearing this gives Noah genuine hope for the first time. Maybe changing the future really is possible. Unfortunately, Zekus quickly reminds Noah that his current divine core is still incredibly weak. If he wants to unlock its true potential, he must continue challenging stronger enemies. Noah smirks and assures him that was already part of the plan. Satisfied with the answer, Zekus finally smiles and tells Noah to prove his determination by taking out the trash monster waiting outside. Instantly, Noah returns to the battlefield. One of the monsters lunges toward him at full speed, but Noah remains completely calm. Declaring that the fight ends here, he activates Dual Heaven Render. Brilliant light blades erupt around him and slash directly through the monster. Immediately afterward, another system message appears, explaining that these light blades can be freely manipulated and even transformed into different forms. Osrek can barely believe his eyes when he sees Noah sever one of the monster's arms in a single attack. Desperate, the creature attempts to flee. Noah refuses to allow it. Declaring that the hunter has now become the hunted, he pursues the retreating monster and cleaves its body apart before cleanly removing its head. One enemy down. Unfortunately, the second monster has no intention of waiting patiently. While Noah finishes off the first one, the other creature charges up a massive green beam and fires it directly at him. Julia desperately screams for Noah to move, but he doesn't budge an inch. Instead, Noah calmly raises his sword and intercepts the attack using his newly awakened light blades. When the smoke clears, Noah is standing there completely unharmed. Even Julia is left speechless. Casually lowering his weapon, Noah announces that the battle is already over. Massive light blades erupt across the battlefield and instantly skewer the second monster, turning it into a giant kebab. As the creature collapses, the system congratulates Noah on his victory and announces that he has unlocked a brand new ability. More messages from Zekis begin appearing, with the former successor congratulating Noah and encouraging him to use this power for the sake of good. Noah pumps his fist in excitement. Not only has he gained tremendous power, but he has also acquired an entirely new technique. Osrek rushes over in disbelief, still struggling to process that the seemingly invincible monster has actually been defeated. Looking at the massive hole blasted through the creature's body, Julia confirms that it's unquestionably dead. More importantly, she notices that the curse on her arm has completely vanished, meaning Osrek's wife should finally be cured as well. Naturally, Osrek is overjoyed and suggests they return home immediately. Before leaving, however, Julia stops Noah. Once again, she questions how a mere 2-star swordsman could possibly wield techniques like the ones she just witnessed. Noah tries to dodge the question, but Julia isn't having it. She begins listing the major mana-based sword styles: the foundational magic sword style, her own shadow flame style, the speed-oriented shadow thunder style, and the deceptive deep shadow style. Yet Noah's techniques resemble none of them. After a long, intense staring contest, Julia finally decides to let the matter rest for now. Smiling faintly, she simply says that she looks forward to the day they fight over monocores again, because apparently, in the Daskul family, that's considered sibling affection. Sometime after returning from the Infinite Library, Noah heads straight toward Eve's residence alongside instructor Kyle. Now that he has successfully obtained the book UN, it's finally time to collect his payment. Information regarding the mysterious assassins who attacked him earlier. Noah fully intends to complete their deal and uncover the mastermind behind everything. However, the moment he opens the door to Eve's quarters, he realizes something is terribly wrong. The entire place has been completely trashed. Furniture lies shattered across the floor, decorations have been destroyed, and signs of battle are everywhere. Standing silently amidst the wreckage is Case, leaning against the wall with an unusually grim expression. Noah immediately demands to know what happened. Case reveals that while he was away dealing with an urgent mission, Eve was abducted. Worse still, he already knows exactly who did it. The culprit is none other than Skull Daskul and his gang of loyal goons. Apparently, Skull became desperate to learn the secret behind Noah's sudden strength and kidnapped Eve to force information out of her. Rather than becoming enraged, Noah simply smiles. In fact, the revelation actually pleases him. After all, he had already suspected that Skull was somehow connected to the assassination attempts against him. Now, everything has fallen neatly into place. Skull isn't just one problem anymore, he's two problems conveniently bundled into one very punchable package. Noah calmly states that the solution is simple. They'll just storm Skull's estate and bring Eve back. Kyle immediately hesitates, asking if Noah truly intends to directly challenge Lord Skull. Noah reassures him that this won't be a battle. It'll be a one-sided beating. Case declares that he's coming too. Since Eve was kidnapped while he was absent, he intends to atone for his failure personally. Kyle suggests gathering additional troops before making a move, but Case immediately rejects the idea. There simply isn't enough time. At that moment, Noah proudly recites the Daskul family motto, declaring that the blades of the Daskul family never waver, no matter how many enemies stand before them. Hearing those words, Kyle finally stops objecting. Noah then orders his instructor to remain behind and protect the estate in their absence. Kyle solemnly swears that he will defend it with his life if necessary. With preparations complete, Noah and Case immediately depart. Riding at full speed, the two brothers race towards Skull's estate. Along the way, Noah asks whether Eve will be alright. Case confidently assures him that Eve is more than capable of taking care of herself. Noah admits that Case certainly has a lot of faith in her, which naturally leads him to ask a question that's been bothering him for some time. Why exactly is a member of the Daskul family serving as Eve's personal bodyguard? Case finally reveals the truth. Ever since childhood, his mana core has always been significantly weaker than those of his siblings. The only reason he managed to remain competitive within the family was because he relentlessly trained his combat skills. To improve, he needed access to information, lots of it. Since martial arts techniques are usually guarded as closely as family heirlooms and passed down secretly through generations, Eve's information network became indispensable to him. Suddenly, everything makes sense to Noah. The reason he struggled to fully understand Case's fighting style during their duel was because the second son had spent years gathering and mastering techniques from countless sources. Case then quietly adds that for the sake of becoming stronger, he will ensure that nothing ever happens to Eve. The statement alone tells Noah everything he needs to know. Eventually, the two arrive outside Skull's estate. Case immediately proposes locating Eve first before making their move. Noah, however, clearly has no interest in sneaking around. According to him, only rats skulk through the shadows. Charging mana into his leg, Noah simply kicks the front gate so hard that it flies clean off its hinges. Subtlety has officially left the chat. The brothers march straight through the front entrance and are immediately greeted by an entire army assembled in the courtyard. Case warns Noah that these men belong to Skull's personal assassin squad and that every single one of them is highly trained. Standing at their front is a man wearing a metal mask. The masked assassin mocks the brothers for barging in through the front gate like complete fools. Noah immediately fires back, stating that he doesn't have time to waste on annoying insects and demands that Skull show himself. That response instantly enrages the masked leader, who coldly reminds Noah that he isn't in any position to make demands. One assassin attempts to ambush Noah from behind, only for Noah to effortlessly block the sneak attack before cutting the man straight through the chest in a single motion. Even after witnessing that, the assassin leader refuses to back down and boldly declares that they will show absolutely no mercy to the enemies of Lord Skull. Noah couldn't care less. The two immediately clash, exchanging sword strikes one after another. Meanwhile, the remaining assassins swarm Case from every direction. Completely unfazed, Case leaps high into the air before activating his shadow lightning technique and driving his sword into the ground. A devastating shockwave erupts outward, blasting the surrounding assassins away and sending bodies flying across the courtyard. Calmly standing amidst the chaos, Case invites them to keep coming if they dare. Noah glances backward and feels reassured, knowing that his rear is completely secure. Unfortunately, the masked leader interprets that glance as mockery and angrily accuses Noah of underestimating them. Suddenly, the assassin throws a strange scroll high into the sky. The scroll unfolds, forming a gigantic magic circle beneath the entire battlefield. Noah immediately senses that something is wrong. The masked man proudly reveals that this formation was specifically created to counter members of the Daskul family. He charges forward with his mana sword, forcing Noah to react. Instinctively, Noah activates Appraisal and notices that the assassin possesses multiple hidden techniques. He immediately attempts to activate one of his own abilities, but nothing happens. For the first time in a long while, Noah freezes in surprise. Left with no other choice, he hastily dodges backward. It only takes him a moment to understand what happened. The formation created by the scroll has sealed his mana core. The assassin leader laughs, arrogantly claiming that Noah won't survive without relying on flashy abilities. Just then, Case arrives beside Noah as the remaining assassins continue surrounding them. The situation is becoming increasingly unfavorable. They are heavily outnumbered, and now their mana cores are restricted as well. Case, however, remains perfectly calm. He tells Noah to continue onward while he deals with the trash personally. Reassuring Noah that he'll be fine, Case insists that finding Eve takes priority. After quickly assessing the battlefield, Noah realizes that his brother is right. Without wasting another second, he dashes forward. Several assassins attempt to block his escape, but Case casually raises a single finger. Instantly, a massive stone slope erupts from the ground, creating a direct path forward. Noah immediately sprints up the newly formed ramp, while Case shouts after him that Skull is most likely hiding within the detached palace. The assassins quickly attempt to pursue Noah, but Case has already prepared another surprise. Giant stone spikes suddenly burst from the slope itself, impaling most of the pursuing assassins and wiping them out almost instantly. Watching nearly his entire force get massacred in the blink of an eye, the masked leader can do nothing but stare in stunned disbelief. Case calmly turns toward the lone survivor and announces that from this point onward, he'll be his opponent. Judging by the expression hidden beneath that mask, the assassin has just realized that his day is about to get significantly worse. Meanwhile, inside the detached palace, Skull is busy interrogating Eve. Sitting calmly in captivity, the information broker looks far more inconvenienced than frightened. Skull asks her once again whether she's finally ready to talk. Eve, without even the slightest hint of fear, calmly informs him that her answer remains exactly the same: no. That response immediately irritates the third son. Growing increasingly frustrated, Skull reminds her that he didn't just capture her. Several members of her staff are also being held hostage. Eve, however, couldn't care less. Instead, she absolutely roasts the man, stating that she's honestly ashamed to share blood with someone as pathetic as him. Unsurprisingly, that comment lands like a critical hit. Skull's blood pressure skyrockets instantly. Looking outside, he notices the commotion erupting in the distance and remarks that things are becoming lively. Eve smiles knowingly and suggests that perhaps Noah has finally arrived. Skull only sneers, calling Noah an idiot for charging through the front gate instead of sneaking in. Eve immediately shuts that down. According to her, a true Daskul would never rely on underhanded tricks. Noah marching straight through the front entrance suits him perfectly because he possesses something Skull lacks: pride. She even thanks Skull for being such a trash bag, because his stupidity has allowed her to witness Noah's true potential. That statement completely shatters what little remained of Skull's composure. Enraged, he reaches for his sword. Unfortunately for him, before he can do anything, the window behind him suddenly explodes inward. Noah comes flying through the opening with maximum aura, instantly turning the entire room into his personal entrance scene. Proudly announcing that he's here to rescue Eve, Noah receives a teasing complaint from her that he took far too long. Before the siblings can continue talking, Skull points his sword directly at Noah. Noah simply smiles, draws his own blade, and calmly declares that it's time to settle everything once and for all. Skull smirks, genuinely believing he can still defeat Noah. Noah, on the other hand, acts as though the result has already been decided. In his eyes, Skull ranks below him in every conceivable category. That smug confidence absolutely annihilates Skull's fragile ego. Furious, the salty edgelord charges forward, desperate to silence his younger brother. Noah calmly raises his sword and receives the incoming attack. The impact is so powerful that both brothers are blasted straight through the palace wall and sent flying outside. Even while airborne, they continue exchanging strikes at incredible speed before finally crashing into the courtyard amidst a shower of debris. Wanting to properly assess his opponent, Noah activates appraisal. Instantly, he notices black lightning crackling around Skull's body, while his abilities and combat skills all exceed the 6-star threshold. Curious, Noah asks the obvious question: why does Skull hate him enough to send assassins after him? Hearing that, Skull reveals a twisted grin and replies that the reason should be painfully obvious. Finally, unable to suppress his resentment any longer, he charges again while screaming that he can't stand Noah even breathing the same air as him. Noah casually counters and smacks him away like an annoying insect. During the exchange, Noah realizes that Skull's mana core seal disappeared the moment they left the anti-Daskul magic circle. The brothers clash once more, and this time, Skull finally unleashes years of bottled-up jealousy. He rants about how their father gave Noah all the attention that rightfully belonged to him. Even after Noah deflects one strike, Skull immediately follows up with another blow powerful enough to split him clean in half. Thankfully, Noah narrowly avoids the attack with a perfectly timed duck. Pulling back, Noah quickly concludes that a prolonged swordsmanship duel would favor Skull. The third son is extremely skilled at blending feints with genuine attacks, constantly manipulating his opponent's expectations. The strategy may be dirty, but in a real battle, dirty wins fights. Lifting his sword, Skull orders Noah to obediently become the stepping stone for his rise in the succession battle. Then he unveils the third form of the Yuan style, Night Parade of Phantom Armies. Instantly, the battlefield fills with an entire legion of skeletal warriors. Suddenly, surrounded by what looks like a discount undead invasion, Noah finds himself staring at dozens of skeletons eager to turn him into lunch. Fortunately, these bony clowns aren't particularly impressive. Noah tears through them effortlessly, shattering skeleton after skeleton. However, he remains cautious. He knows this army exists merely as a distraction. Skull's real attack is still hidden somewhere. Sure enough, one skeleton suddenly ambushes him from behind. Noah senses its killing intent at the last possible moment and barely blocks the strike. To his surprise, the attack carries genuine physical force. These aren't illusions at all. Realizing the danger, Noah leaps high into the air and activates Twin Heaven Violent Tear. Brilliant beams of light erupt across the battlefield, vaporizing the entire undead army at once and sending them back to the afterlife. The problem is that the skeletons immediately begin respawning. Apparently, Skull forgot to mention they came equipped with infinite lives. Growing tired of farming trash mobs, Noah decides to ignore the minions entirely and target the summoner directly. Skull watches in disbelief as Noah effortlessly bulldozes through his undead army. The two lock swords again while skeletons continue attacking from behind. However, Noah's Twin Heaven technique automatically shoots backward like sentient energy whips, roasting the skeletons medium rare before they can interfere. Noah loudly informs Skull that it doesn't matter how many pathetic undead servants he summons because they're every bit as weak and embarrassing as their master. Realizing he's losing control of the battle, Skull retreats and dismisses the skeleton army altogether. Stabbing his sword into the ground, he unleashes an enormous surge of mana. Noah braces himself for whatever nonsense is about to emerge next. Moments later, a gigantic silver dragon erupts from beneath the earth. Following Skull's orders, the beast lunges toward Noah with jaws wide open, treating him like the final slice of pizza at a family gathering. Surprisingly, Noah remains perfectly calm. In fact, he sees this as the perfect opportunity to test a new technique, activating the fifth form of the Shinwi style, Eyes of Holy Darkness. Noah leaps gracefully into the sky. The dragon charges beneath him, only for Noah to land directly atop its head. As their eyes meet, something extraordinary happens. The dragon immediately calms down and quietly allows Noah to stand upon it. Skull nearly short-circuits trying to understand why his summoned dragon has suddenly become obedient. Frantically, he orders his oversized lizard to move and kill Noah. Unfortunately for him, Eyes of Holy Darkness allows Noah to seize authority over enemy summons. In other words, The silver dragon now belongs to Noah. Naturally, Noah decides to give Skull a first-hand demonstration of why that's a bad thing. Refusing to accept reality, Skull desperately activates the first form of the Yuan style, shadow-piercing fang. The attack tears directly through his own dragon, entering through its mouth and exploding out the other side. The resulting detonation lights up the entire sky, like someone recreated the Mentos and Cola experiment on a mythical scale. Using the explosion as cover, Noah slips behind Skull and delivers a clean horizontal slash across his back, leaving a deep wound. Barely escaping death, Skull is finally pushed into complete desperation. Admitting that he never wanted to resort to his cheapest trick, Skull pulls a bone-white whistle from his pocket and blows into it. Instantly, a portal opens behind him. Eve appears, held hostage by two black-clad men. Grinning like the manipulative sewer rat he is, Skull reminds Noah that rescuing Eve was the entire reason he came here. Therefore, the rules are simple. If Noah moves, Eve dies. Noah is utterly disgusted by the pathetic tactic. Unfortunately, Skull has long since abandoned concepts like honor or dignity. He confidently promises to release Eve after killing Noah. Before the standoff can escalate further, however, a tremendous burst of crimson magic explodes across the battlefield, sending everyone flying. When the dust settles, both Noah and Skull stare in complete shock. Standing protectively before Eve is a familiar figure clad in shining black armor. Damien Dascool has arrived. Making his dramatic entrance count, Damien coldly reminds Skull that Eve has no intention of participating in the succession battle. Therefore, abducting her constitutes a direct violation of family rules. Skull remains completely unfazed, but Damien calmly declares that he'll personally execute him for breaking those rules. The man honestly sounds like he practices villain monologues in front of a mirror every morning. Just as Damien prepares to act, Noah immediately calls him out. According to Noah, Damien doesn't care about Eve at all. He's merely using the situation as an excuse to steal Skull's mana core for himself. Noah bluntly states that he doesn't care who stands in his way. If necessary, he'll cut down anyone. Before the atmosphere can explode into total chaos, Eve casually points out that interfering in an ongoing battle for mana cores also violates family law. Damien clicks his tongue in annoyance. Since even he can't argue against that logic, he reluctantly backs down and allows the brothers to continue their duel. Taking a seat on the sidelines, Damien prepares to watch the fight unfold like an aristocrat who just paid premium admission for the night's entertainment. The atmosphere turns tense once again as every pair of eyes slowly shifts back toward the battlefield. Noah casually points his sword toward Skull and tells him to continue right where they left off. However, after noticing the slightest hesitation from his older brother, Noah immediately starts roasting him, asking whether he can no longer fight unless children and hostages are standing in front of him first. That comment hits a nerve instantly. Skull's expression twists in anger because, in his mind, everyone in the Dascool family has always looked down on him no matter what he accomplished. The resentment he has buried for years finally explodes. Dark energy bursts outward from his body as he activates the seventh form of the Yuan style. Sinister waves of shadow coil around him, corrupting the surrounding air itself. The atmosphere becomes so oppressive that even the spectators instinctively tense up. Enraged, Skull swears that this time he will carve Noah into pieces. Fortunately, Noah already understands the fundamentals of the Yuan style. The entire style revolves around deception, hidden openings, feints, and misleading attacks. As long as he avoids exposing obvious weaknesses, Noah believes the battle heavily favors him. Skull immediately charges, and Noah cleanly parries the incoming strike. Neither brother wastes another second as the fierce duel resumes. Steel collides against steel over and over again, as both brothers exchange relentless blows across the battlefield. Their swords move so quickly that sparks constantly erupt between them. After several exchanges, Noah decides to press the offense and unleashes Twin Heaven Violent Rip. To his surprise, the attack completely fails to pierce Skull's dark aura. Noah is genuinely shocked for a brief moment, because his technique should have landed. Skull immediately capitalizes on that hesitation and activates the fourth form of the Yuan style, Avagia/Shadow. Massive dark blades tear through the air at terrifying speed. Noah desperately blocks and parries almost every incoming slash with razor-thin precision. At this point, pure instinct is honestly carrying him through the fight, but even Noah can't defend forever. Suddenly, one hidden slash breaks through his defenses and sends him flying backward with overwhelming force. Skull instantly rushes forward to finish him off. Somehow, Noah barely survives, escaping with nothing more than a shallow cut across his face. Even Skull looks visibly surprised that Noah managed to endure such a lethal attack. Refusing to remain cornered, Noah immediately thrusts his sword into the ground. Countless spears of light erupt upward, forcing Skull backward, and finally creating some desperately needed distance. Taking advantage of the breathing room, Noah reassesses the battle. He quickly realizes that he's in a far more difficult situation than he initially expected. Skull not only specializes in deceptive combat techniques, but his defenses are also powerful enough to absorb Noah's direct attacks. Noah genuinely doesn't understand why Skull resorted to cowardly methods despite already possessing this level of strength. With power like this, he could have competed fairly in the succession succession battle from the beginning. Hearing that, Skull finally reveals the source of his hatred. Their father never once acknowledged him, because Victor believed techniques centered around deception held no value within the Dazkul family. Despite dedicating himself completely to becoming stronger, and even creating the entire Yuan style with his own efforts, Victor still never looked his way. It was almost as if their father developed selective blindness whenever Skull entered the room. That resentment never disappeared. Consumed by jealousy and anger, Skull eventually convinced himself that victory could only be achieved through his own ruthless methods. If becoming a villain guaranteed success, then he was willing to stain his hands without hesitation. The moment he says those words, a colossal pillar of dark aura erupts around him, blinding nearly everyone present. Declaring that he's wasted enough time talking, Skull unleashes his ultimate move, Yuan-style 9th form, Dragon-slaying burial. A gigantic dragon made entirely of dark aura erupts from Skull's sword. The massive construct ascends into the sky before violently crashing downward with devastating force. Noah immediately raises his guard as the battlefield is consumed by a gigantic explosion. When the dust finally clears, the Shadow Dragon remains standing ominously behind Skull like an overpowered final boss. Noah struggles to steady his breathing, while Skull notices that Noah's mana core has nearly reached its limit. Smugly, he declares that a mere swordsman without mana can no longer hope to win. However, before Skull can celebrate, Noah calmly reaches into his pocket and pulls something out. The object instantly shocks Skull. It is a solidified version of the poison that Skull secretly fed him for years. Rather than disposing of it, Noah deliberately preserved it for a moment exactly like this. Without hesitation, Noah swallows the pill. Skull immediately calls him insane. Calmly, Noah explains that while the poison originally overloaded the mana core and drove its victim berserk, his body has already adapted and overcome those side effects long ago. A terrifying amount of aura suddenly erupts from Noah's body and spreads across the battlefield with crushing pressure. Noah reveals that the poison now functions as a potion capable of restoring his mana, while also granting him access to additional abilities. More importantly, Noah states that he carries a reason why he absolutely cannot afford to lose. Thinking back to his previous life, he firmly declares that he will never allow humanity to suffer another tragedy ever again, no matter the cost. Immediately, Noah activates Shinui-style 2nd form, Light Dark Flash. Holy and dark mana simultaneously surge from his sword in violent waves. Without hesitation, both brothers charge directly at one another. The final clash begins. Their confrontation reaches an absolutely terrifying level. Every collision between their attacks creates explosive shockwaves, powerful enough to resemble actual bomb blasts. The surrounding terrain trembles violently under the pressure generated by their battle. Even Damien struggles to withstand the overwhelming force erupting around him. Standing beside Eve amidst the settling dust, both spectators can only stare ahead in disbelief as the battlefield is repeatedly ravaged by supersonic shockwaves. Eventually, the dust begins to clear. To everyone's shock, Skull is kneeling in defeat before Noah. Yet instead of taking his mana core by force, Noah unexpectedly shows mercy. He simply asks Skull to surrender properly. The defeated brother falls silent for several moments before finally admitting defeat and agreeing to hand over his mana core. Noah calmly accepts the surrender. Unfortunately, Skull still has one final dirty trick prepared. The very moment Noah lowers his guard, Skull suddenly drives his sword straight through Noah's abdomen. Damien and Eve stare in complete shock. Laughing hysterically, Skull screams that he will never surrender to someone like Noah, and that he refuses to let anyone look down on him ever again. In a final fit of madness, he rips the sword free before viciously slashing across Noah's abdomen a second time. Even the spectators freeze because the guy truly chose maximum drama before going down. Noah coughs up blood as Eve immediately rushes forward to help him, only for Damien to stop her from recklessly entering the battlefield. Skull doesn't waste the opportunity and lunges forward, determined to deliver the final killing blow. Yet Noah moves first by the narrowest possible margin and slashes directly across Skull's chest. The counterattack lands perfectly and instantly reverses the flow of battle. Skull collapses onto his back while blood continuously pours from his mouth. Both brothers now lie bleeding on the ruined battlefield. Looking upward, Noah quietly wonders whether this really represents how the Dazkul family fights. Honestly, the entire family seems more insane than impressive. He bitterly comments that Dazkuls appear to value pride far more than their actual lives. Moments later, Noah himself collapses from blood loss and exhaustion. This time, Eve immediately rushes toward Noah. Damien grimly warns her that Noah's injuries appear fatal and that the medical team won't arrive in time to save him. Eve confidently replies that she can handle it herself. Without hesitation, she channels mana into her healing ability and activates Hazy Lantern. The technique successfully stops Noah's bleeding. After several tense moments, Noah finally regains consciousness. Weakly, he asks Eve about the strange ability she used. Eve explains that although she doesn't actively participate in combat like the others, she can still utilize techniques connected to her mana core. Noah sincerely thanks her for saving his life. However, Eve quickly redirects his attention towards Skull's corpse and calmly reminds him that, according to family rules, Skull's mana core now belongs to him. Silence falls across the battlefield as Noah slowly approaches his fallen brother. Absorbing the mana core directly, Noah immediately feels tremendous power flooding through his body. When he opens his status screen, he discovers that his mana core has advanced by 3 entire ranks at once. The growth is equivalent to years of brutal training gained within a single moment. Even Noah looks stunned by how absurdly broken this reward truly is. Shortly afterward, Case finally arrives at the scene and admits that he never expected the youngest sibling to become the one who defeated Skull. His first concern is Eve's condition, but she reassures him that she remained unharmed because Damien intervened before the situation completely spiraled out of control. This naturally shifts everyone's attention toward the eldest brother. Damien calmly explains that he merely acted according to family rules and nothing more. A tense silence forms between Noah and Damien before the eldest finally admits that the battle genuinely interested him. Never before has he witnessed power exceeding the conventional limits of a mana core. For the first time, Damien no longer views Noah as insignificant. Instead, he studies his younger brother with genuine interest, almost as if he's finally acknowledging Noah as a real threat. Damien openly admits that he's curious about the true nature of Noah's strange powers. However, he claims that more important matters currently demand his attention elsewhere. Before the conversation can continue, a messenger suddenly arrives and respectfully informs Noah that Lord Victor has summoned him immediately. The scene soon shifts to Victor's grand castle, where the patriarch himself calmly addresses Noah. Apparently, word has already spread throughout the family that Noah defeated Skull and absorbed his mana core afterward. Victor directly asks whether those rumors are true, and Noah confirms every single detail without hesitation. Rather than focusing on the outcome, Victor immediately asks for Noah's personal evaluation of Skull's abilities during the battle. Noah answers honestly, admitting that when it came to pure swordsmanship and mana core techniques, Skull actually surpassed him in nearly every category. That straightforward response briefly catches Victor's attention. After all, members of the Dazkul family are apparently born with severe cases of chronic ego. Hearing one of them openly acknowledge someone else's strengths is practically a miracle. Victor then presses further, asking how Noah still managed to claim victory despite fighting at such a disadvantage. Noah calmly explains that his endless hunger for strength simply refuses to allow him to lose, no matter how difficult the battle becomes. Victor appears genuinely pleased by that answer. He remarks that Skull repeatedly committed unforgivable crimes against the family, and because Noah finally put an end to that chaos, he deserves a reward. The family head then tells Noah not to hold back and asks him to request absolutely anything he desires. Surprisingly, Noah shows zero interest in wealth, treasures, or legendary weapons. Instead, he requests permission to travel to a very specific location. The unusual request immediately amuses Victor, who finds it strange that his son possesses no greed for material rewards whatsoever. Noah simply explains that the destination itself offers rewards far greater than anything money could buy. Victor quietly wonders if this mindset stems from Noah's relentless obsession with becoming stronger. Eventually, he approves the request and asks where Noah intends to go. The story then shifts to Noah, traveling inside a carriage alongside Lydia and Selena. Curious, the maids ask whether this journey serves as a reward for his recent accomplishments. Noah confirms that it technically counts as one, though he quickly clarifies that he didn't travel all this way for sightseeing or leisure. Handing all travel arrangements over to his maids, Noah entrusts Selena with managing everything. Just then, Lydia excitedly leans out of the carriage window and announces that their destination has finally come into view. Hearing this, Noah quietly feels relieved because he has finally arrived at the legendary city created through cooperation between humans and dragons themselves, Dragon Nest City, Draconia. Before they can even reach the city's gates, however, their carriage is stopped by 2 Dragonite guards mounted on horseback. Noah steps outside, and the guards immediately recognize him as Lord Noah of the Dazkul family. Introducing themselves as official messengers from Draconia, they explain that their duty is to escort their honored guest safely to the city. Noah immediately finds the situation strange. They're still incredibly far away from the city itself, making such an escort feel suspiciously premature. On top of that, Noah senses something nearby that doesn't sit right with him at all. Nevertheless, he politely accepts their offer while keeping his guard up. Moments later, a voice suddenly rings out from behind them, shouting insults toward both Noah and the Dazkul family. An ambush immediately follows. The attackers turn out to be members of the Ogre tribe, and judging by their expressions, they are definitely not happy to see a Dazkul noble traveling through their territory. Even the Dragonite guards are caught completely off guard by the sudden attack. Noah instantly draws his sword because, frankly, those 2 Dragonites would probably get flattened if left alone against the incoming monsters. Noah recalls reading that the Ogres and Draconia have long been locked in a bitter conflict over control of the region. The 2 races fundamentally disagree with one another. Ogres are a race obsessed with expansion, conquest, and accumulating more power. Dragons, meanwhile, value order, peace, and stability. Looking at the situation diplomatically, the Dragonite guards conclude that the ogres likely wish to prevent Draconia from establishing stronger ties with the Dazkul family. Slipping into command mode, Noah immediately orders Lydia and Selena to remain safely inside the carriage. The ogre leader arrogantly mocks the Dragonites, joking that the lizards must be truly desperate if they need assistance from the Dazkul family. The giant even generously offers to spare Noah if he quietly turns around and goes home. Irritated by the giant's attitude, Noah points his sword directly at the ogre's face and offers the exact same deal. If the giant leaves now, he might still get to walk home using both legs. The disrespect lands perfectly. Veins bulge across the ogre leader's forehead as the giant explodes in rage. Nearly twice Noah's size, the massive warrior roars that he's about to turn Noah's tiny human body into powder. He stomps the ground so hard that a gigantic dust cloud erupts, completely obscuring everyone's vision. Despite losing sight of his opponent, Noah remains perfectly calm, preparing to strike the moment the ogre reveals himself. Suddenly, a pair of enormous hands bursts through the smoke, attempting to Hulk smash him into the ground. Noah narrowly leaps away at the last possible moment, which turns out to be an excellent decision because the impact completely shatters the earth like an exploding bomb. The ogre immediately follows up by ripping an entire chunk of terrain from the ground and hurling it straight at Noah. In response, Noah activates Shinwi-style first form and slices the gigantic boulder into pieces. Unfortunately, doing so leaves him completely exposed from behind. The ogre leader grins, convinced he's about to break the world record for shattered bones with a single punch. Yet Noah reacts at the very last second, spinning around and blocking the attack with his sword. The block itself succeeds, but the overwhelming force behind the punch sends Noah flying at supersonic speed directly into a mountainside. Miraculously, he walks out of the crater with every bone still intact. Dusting himself off, Noah admits that the ogre's monstrous physical strength is absolutely legitimate. However, raw power alone doesn't win battles. True victory requires technique, precision, and control. The ogre immediately mocks Noah, claiming only an idiot would attack someone stronger head-on. Drawing back his fist for another mountain-shattering punch, the giant swings once more. This time, Noah attacks from above. Performing a smooth aerial maneuver, he slips past the punch entirely and delivers a clean slash across the ogre leader's arm. With their strongest fighter wounded, Noah taunts the remaining ogres and tells them to come at him together if they want their turn. Naturally, that challenge enrages them. All 4 remaining ogres rush Noah simultaneously. In response, Noah unleashes Shinwi-style Twin Heaven Tier. Brilliant blades of light erupt across the battlefield, skewering all 4 ogres at once and transforming them into forbidden beef kebabs. The defeated giants crash into the ground like oversized holiday decorations. Witnessing the power of a Dazkul lord firsthand, the Dragonite guards openly admit that Noah's strength vastly exceeds the rumors surrounding him. Even Lydia and Selena stare in complete shock after witnessing such an overwhelming display. Noah appreciates the compliments, but immediately reminds his maids that they were specifically instructed to remain hidden inside the carriage. The two simply respond as though it was obvious that observing their Lord Farm aura points was part of their duties. Looking toward a nearby cliff, Noah calmly calls out to the final survivor, informing him that he should stop hiding because he's honestly terrible at it. Moments later, a massive flying dragon soars overhead. Leaping down from its back, a Dragonite warrior lands before the group. Impressed by Noah's performance, the warrior compliments the young lord's strength and formally introduces himself as Adelbalt, captain of the Dragon Knights. Noah immediately asks why the mighty captain spent the entire battle spectating instead of helping. Adelbalt bluntly replies that their king has no need for weaklings incapable of protecting themselves. Even though Noah already knows the answer, he still asks whether he passed their little test. Adelbalt confirms that he did, and officially offers to escort Noah personally to meet their ruler, Lord Arkados. Not long afterward, the group finally arrives inside Dragon Nest City itself. Selena is stunned by the sight before her. Humans and dragons coexist peacefully throughout the city, as though such a thing is perfectly normal. Children of different races happily play together in the streets without a care in the world. After traveling deeper into the city, Adelbalt eventually leads them toward a gigantic cave guarded by a greater dragon. Passing through dim hallways illuminated by glowing magical lamps, the group eventually arrives before an enormous gate engraved with Draconia's royal crest. Adelbalt announces the arrival of Lord Noah of the Dazkul family, and a deep voice from within grants permission to enter. The gigantic gates slowly open, and instantly an overwhelming pressure floods the entire chamber. The sheer aura is unlike anything Noah has ever experienced. Even the Dragonite guards immediately kneel before their lord's presence. Lydia and Selena instinctively hide behind Noah as a pair of glowing blue eyes stares at them from the darkness. Then, as light gradually spreads throughout the chamber, the ruler of Draconia finally reveals himself. The majestic golden dragon, Lord Arkados, warmly welcomes the young lord who may one day become his future ally.